In the rolling hills of southeastern Turkey, about 10 miles northeast of the modern city of Şanlıurfa, there is a limestone ridge that does not look unusual at first glance. For centuries, local farmers walked across it, stones stuck out of the soil. The land was dry, quiet, and exposed to the wide Anatolian sky. Nothing about it suggested that it would one day force historians to rethink the story of civilization itself. In the 1960s, a joint survey by the University of Istanbul and the University of Chicago visited the hill. Archaeologists noticed scattered stone fragments and what looked like broken slabs. They concluded it was likely a medieval cemetery. With no visible buildings or standing walls, there seemed to be little reason to dig deeper. The site was recorded and then largely forgotten. It remained that way for nearly 3 decades. Then, in 1994, a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt visited the area while working with the German Archaeological Institute. He had been studying Neolithic sites in the region. When he saw the hill, known locally as Göbekli Tepe, meaning Potbelly Hill, he immediately sensed that something was different. The stones on the surface did not look like simple grave markers. They appeared older, deliberate, worked by human hands in a way that felt far more ancient. Schmidt later said he knew within minutes that this was not a medieval site, it was something much older. Excavations began soon after, and what slowly emerged from beneath the soil stunned the archaeological world. Large, T-shaped limestone pillars stood arranged in wide circular enclosures. Some reached over 16 feet tall and weighed as much as 20 tons. They were not rough stones pulled from the ground. They had been carefully carved and shaped. Even more remarkable, many of them were decorated with detailed relief carvings: foxes, snakes, vultures, wild boars, cranes, and abstract symbols that still have no clear explanation. These were not random decorations. The carvings were intentional and precise. Whoever made them had skill and purpose. As teams uncovered more layers, they found multiple circular structures, each built with massive stone pillars set into carved sockets in bedrock. The enclosures were carefully planned. At the center of each stood 2 larger pillars facing one another, as if forming a focal point for gathering or ritual. Radiocarbon dating soon provided the most shocking detail of all. The oldest layers of Göbekli Tepe dated back to around 9,600 BCE, roughly 11,600 years ago. That date places it at the very end of the last ice age, during a time known as the pre-pottery Neolithic period. According to the traditional timeline taught in textbooks, humans at that time were still hunter-gatherers. Agriculture had not yet fully developed. Permanent cities did not exist. Monumental stone architecture, like temples or ceremonial centers, was believed to have come much later, after farming created stable communities. And yet here stood massive carved pillars arranged in organized circles, built thousands of years before Stonehenge and long before the pyramids of Egypt. There is no serious debate about the authenticity of Göbekli Tepe. The dating methods are sound, the excavation records are clear, the site is real, and it is ancient. What is debated is what it means. Archaeologists agree on several core facts. The site contains multiple circular stone enclosures layered over time. The oldest layers clearly predate pottery and domesticated crops. There is no evidence of farming in the earliest phase. The limestone pillars were quarried from nearby bedrock, likely using stone tools, and transported short distances uphill. The construction would have required coordination and cooperation among large groups of people. And then there is another strange detail. Around 8000 BCE, the site appears to have been intentionally buried. The enclosures were carefully filled with soil, stone fragments, and debris. This was not the result of erosion or natural collapse. It was deliberate. Someone covered the structures on purpose. Why build something so massive only to bury it? Excavations have also revealed something else that is missing. In the earliest layers, there are no clear signs of permanent houses, no hearth-centered homes, no domestic living spaces. It does not look like a village. This challenges the long-held sequence of human development. For decades, common understanding has been simple. First came agriculture. Farming allowed people to settle in one place. Settlements grew into villages. Villages developed social hierarchies, and eventually temples and monumental architecture were built. Göbekli Tepe seems to reverse that order. Here, monumental construction appears before farming, before pottery, before clear evidence of permanent settlement. So how did this happen? How did groups of hunter-gatherers organize labor on this scale? Moving and carving 20-ton pillars without metal tools would have required planning, cooperation, and leadership. It suggests social structure. It suggests shared beliefs strong enough to motivate people to gather and work together. Some researchers believe Göbekli Tepe may have been a ritual or ceremonial center, a gathering place for scattered groups. The animal carvings may have held symbolic meaning. The T-shaped pillars may even represent stylized human figures with carved arms and belts faintly visible on some stones. But there is no written record, no clear inscription explaining the purpose. And that silence leaves room for questions. Was it a sacred site tied to early spiritual practices? A seasonal meeting ground? A social hub that brought communities together at a time of climate change and environmental pressure near the end of the Ice Age? We do not see advanced machines. We do not see evidence of lost high technology. What we see is something quieter, but perhaps just as powerful, the possibility that organized society began forming earlier than we once believed. As we look at Göbekli Tepe, we are not looking at a lost super-civilization. We are looking at human hands carving stone in a time when survival was still closely tied to the rhythms of the natural world. And yet those hands built something monumental. If complex construction existed before the Ice Age fully ended, then maybe the roots of civilization stretched deeper than our old timelines suggest. Maybe social organization, shared belief, and collective effort came first. Farming may not have started civilization. It may have followed it. Göbekli Tepe does not give us all the answers, but it quietly shifts the starting point of our story. And that is where the real mystery begins, not in fantasy or exaggeration, but in the simple question of how early humans first chose to gather, build, and create something meant to last. As excavations at Göbekli Tepe continued through the late 1990s and early 2000s, the excitement slowly shifted into something deeper. A debate. The stones were real, the dates were solid. But what did it all mean? Most archaeologists today agree on a few key points. Göbekli Tepe was not built by a vanished super-civilization. It was not the work of some unknown advanced culture with lost technology. The tools found at the site are simple, stone tools made from flint and limestone. There is no metal, no writing, no machinery. Everything about the craftsmanship fits within what we know of late Ice Age hunter-gatherer societies. And yet those hunter-gatherers were far more capable than earlier models had imagined. Researchers believe the builders were complex foraging groups living in Upper Mesopotamia around 9,600 BCE. They were likely semi-nomadic, moving with the seasons, hunting wild gazelle, and gathering edible plants. But hunter-gatherer does not mean disorganized. Evidence from other sites in the region shows that even before farming, some groups were forming seasonal camps and social networks that stretched across wide areas. Göbekli Tepe may have been one of the places where those networks came together. The layout of the circular enclosures suggests planning. The central pillars face inward, toward each other, as if marking a focal space. The surrounding pillars create a defined boundary. Archaeologists like Klaus Schmidt argued that this was a ritual or ceremonial center, a place built not for living, but for gathering. Interestingly, there are no clear signs of houses in the earliest layers, no ovens built into walls, no compact living quarters. That absence is important. It suggests the hill was not a permanent settlement, at least not in its earliest phase. Instead, it may have been a destination. Some researchers propose that groups traveled to Göbekli Tepe at certain times of the year. Feasting may have taken place there. Large amounts of animal bones, especially gazelle, have been found in the fill. These remains show signs of butchering and mass consumption. Such gatherings would have required coordination, food storage, and planning. And here is where the debate becomes especially interesting. For much of the 20th century, archaeologists believed that agriculture came first. Farming created food, surpluses. Surpluses allowed permanent settlements. Settlements led to social hierarchy, religion, and eventually monuments. Göbekli Tepe challenges that order. It suggests that shared belief systems, or at least shared rituals, may have brought people together before agriculture became central. In other words, spiritual cooperation may have encouraged farming, not the other way around. This idea has gained support from researchers like Ian Hodder of Stanford University and others studying early Neolithic societies. If groups gathered around 8000 BCE, the enclosures were deliberately filled in. The fill contains broken stone, animal bones, and debris. It was not natural collapse, it was intentional. Layer by layer, the structures were covered. Why would people bury something they had invested so much labor into creating? Some archaeologists suggest changing social patterns. As agriculture spread and permanent villages formed nearby, such as at Nevali Chori and later Çatalhöyük, the need for large ritual gathering centers may have faded. Others believe the burial itself was symbolic, perhaps marking the end of an era. We do not know. It is also important to clarify what Göbekli Tepe does not show. There is no evidence of a global lost civilization, no proof of advanced machines or forgotten high technology. Claims linking it to Atlantis or other legendary submerged civilizations are not supported by archaeological data. Unlike deep-sea mystery sites or sunken structures studied in underwater archaeology, Göbekli Tepe stands firmly on land, with a clear excavation record and scientific dating. Its mystery is not about fantasy, it is about timing. Around 10,800 BCE, just before Göbekli Tepe was built, the Earth entered a sudden cooling period known as the Younger Dryas. Temperatures dropped sharply, the climate became unstable. In regions like the Near East, this would have affected wild food sources and animal migrations. Some researchers believe this environmental stress may have encouraged closer cooperation between human groups. In uncertain times, gathering together could have offered stability. Shared rituals may have strengthened identity and trust. Göbekli Tepe may have played a role in that social survival. If that is true, then monument building was not the result of comfort and surplus. It may have been a response to challenge. Today, only a small portion of Göbekli Tepe has been excavated. Estimates suggest that less than 10% of the site has been uncovered. Ground-penetrating radar surveys show additional circular enclosures still buried beneath the soil. The hill may hold many more structures waiting to be revealed. Excavations are now overseen by the Turkish Ministry of Culture and Tourism, with ongoing research by international teams. Each season brings new data, but also new questions. Why did monument building begin so early? Why here, in this specific region of Upper Mesopotamia? Were there other similar sites that have not yet been found? Did this mark the true beginning of organized society, or are we only seeing one surviving piece of a much broader transition? Göbekli Tepe does not rewrite history in a dramatic or mythical way. It does something more subtle. It pushes the starting line of civilization further back. It shows that long before cities, long before writing, long before kings and dynasties, human beings were capable of planning together, carving symbols into stone, and creating spaces that carried shared meaning. The mystery is no longer whether advanced civilizations existed before the Ice Age in the way legends describe. The evidence does not support that. The deeper mystery is simpler and perhaps more powerful. We are still uncovering the earliest chapters of our own story. And as more of Göbekli Tepe slowly emerges from the earth, it reminds us that civilization did not appear suddenly. It grew in stages, some of which we are only now beginning to see clearly. The hill in southeastern Turkey is quiet again today. But beneath its surface the stones continue to speak, carefully, slowly, about the true beginnings of who we are.